hearing and viewing a lot about the town planning in Cameroon and demolition, especially in the littoral region and other regions. And so we shall be looking at the causes of all this, why there's so much delay, and it comes at a time where story buildings are being brought down and some individuals are owning a lot of land to the detriment of hundreds or thousands of people. Secondly, we shall be discussing on the chaos that reigns between the Cameroon Renaissance movement and maybe some fraction in the SDF, given the national call by the Cameroon Renaissance movement's president, Professor Campto, who says there will be a kind of street demonstration. Thirdly, we shall be discussing on the coup in Mali, whereby presently in Mali there's a kind of chaos after the cross views amongst the coup plotters and the mediators. It has ended to the fact that the president has been released, but the government is yet to come in place. So at this time, I want to begin with, first of all, Pope Bertrand. If you look at the town planning in Cameroon, that it has caused in so many cities now, houses are being demolished because maybe they did not prepare in the past, and now where road has to pass, they have to start demolishing houses. People are internally displaced. What's your take about all this that is happening in Cameroon?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. You see, in the civil engineering corps, we have surveyors, town planners, soil testing, geotechnics, engineers. Now, this town, the country Cameroon or any other country, has been mapped out. Where the problem comes in is it is with our local administrators, the council. They don't follow, they don't sanction their duties accordingly for one reason or the other. Yeah. But to say that when things go wrong, because every street has been mapped out in every town, every region, every town, and every quarter. When we start having demolition, it is because due to bribe taking, which we are condemning seriously every other day in this country, that with the bribing nature of this country, we are retarding instead of progressing. Because when a surveyor or a town planner, who is supposed to go constantly to the field and check where is your plot, let me start with, where is the land that was allocated? Yeah. Where is it? Does it crisscross path with our road network or not? These things are not being taken into consideration, or because you go to the council and fulfill your duties of your site plan, and you pay a sum that is supposed to be taken to the urban affairs for land planning. Now the council greedily sits on that money and does not extend to urban affairs. You now, the ignorant engineers in the council, the ignorant engineer in the council does not go on the site to follow up, does not work in partnership with the town planner to see that this land, this region, this area that has been mapped out, what is the nature of the future development that will come after it. Now people bribe and construct in haphazard manner. Tomorrow, when development comes, I'm just sorry that in Cameroon we are always late, because normally town planners, electric lines have to go first. That is what brings development to the people. When somebody knows that there's a road leading to my plot, there is an electricity line. Now what matters is when I come in, I will struggle and bring in water. Which those are the three things that engulf life, makes life very comfortable. When you miss these things and you construct haphazardly, which means we are putting the cart before the horse.
And the aftermath is demolition.
And at the aftermath, when now the Cameroon government has slowly followed up when they realize that this quartier is populated, maybe 1,000 inhabitants, 2,000 or more, when they are coming in now, the town planners from their head office, the town planner will tell you that this house is on the road. From the map they have on their hands, this house is on the road. And by nature, the house must go down. Because, let me finish, Mr. Moderator, this is a topic which I'm supposed to expatiate on as an engineer, which I have the insight. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Yes.
So, no, I'm not finished. I'm saying that thank you for giving me an extension in time. Now, when these town planners come in, they demolish. You, the common man with a conscious mind, will start thinking that they are wicked. But whereas the owner or the owner of that said property had a greedy mindset.
Okay.
You understand? He had a greedy mindset of contaminating other Cameroonians to build on a piece of land where he was not supposed to. To crack it down, where? To crack it down is when you have your site plan. You go to the council, you take permission. I like it in the French language. They call it permit de bâtiment. You are allowed to construct on that piece of land. But now some people will say that, okay, my land is maybe 10 meters by 10 square, and there's a road passing there, which is 6 meters. Which is 6 meters. Now, they go bribing the council. That no, and from the center road to your plot, you must leave 8 meters, which means that in future development, they can cut through your plot, you will be still left with 6 meters, which means the high traffic, the flow of car may not in one day or in any way affect you. So you live from the center of the road to your yard, it has to be 8 meters. And from the center road to your fence has to be 5 meters. So even near your fence in the future, you will shift your fence back closely. It won't pose any hazard. Now, some people even do it in a very professional manner that they have their site plans. And when you have their site plans, the advantage is you can construct like following the norms. You can construct in an environment following all the norms from the council to the land and surveys, the map which is well mapped out. Now, when you construct in that place, in case of future development that the people of land and surveys did not see, which means that in the future years they can say that they want a football stadium in that place. They want an airport in that place. Now, is it the nation or the country that is posing risks to you because of developmental issues? Now they will settle you with your land certificate and you will leave the place to go elsewhere and purchase. Okay. Now another reason why demolition can be accepted, it is in the case of maybe Boya and Limbe, where you have natural, what they call in law act of God, national hazards, where the people can be forced to leave that region for one reason or for hazards, and they can say that, okay, minerals here want to extract, drain. Due to pollution, people have to leave. They can say that, okay, we have calculated that this hill may collapse someday. You people have to leave. So the government comes in and demolish and compensates you.
Okay. Thank you so very much for that insight, dear viewers. That's why we know the kind of people we bring on set. Thank you very much, Engineer Bertrand. Now, I'll come to you, Legamine SK Kufo. If you look at it, all what he has explained, we have situations where maybe those concerned, the officials concerned, don't even go to cross-check. Once people come to the offices, they just approve, they go and build haphazardly. Now, if you look at what he has explained and what we have on the field, what analysis do you have? Who has the blame at this time?
I would say the person constructing and the local government, which it is the council. Both parties are to be blamed, because first and foremost, like he was talking about corrupt mindset. We say change starts from an individual, and change is contaminating, which means if you have good values, you can easily contaminate others with that good values. And if you have you have ill values, if you're ill-built, you can, when you meet, they say like terms attract. So you meet people with some kind of ill-manneredness, you easily flow together. So first and foremost, we want to say corruption has eaten so deep that uprooting it is one of the most difficult things that is happening in Cameroon. which every person blames the government, but no person wants to change. So we have to say the government is an enlargement from a family to a village to a city to a town to a city. And so one thing first is that individuals must be honest. Yeah. We must learn to be contented. You see, if you have to buy a land, you should be very certain where you are going to buy that land, and you should seek the appropriate authorities within their localities. For example, with the corrupt nature of administrators, you go into their offices, the country is already corrupt, that every person is thinking about his own personal interest and gain. You go in there, at times they even have the Kajwa, which shows the different location sites of the city and places that buildings are not supposed to be. But because they want to extract money from you, they go ahead and sign their papers. They are not the one going to live there. You are the one going to live there. In 10 to 20 years to come, they may not be in that same office. They may have been transferred. If a different system come in place and deem it fit that such things should be put down, it will not be their concern. So we are living in a society that people are so conscious about their personal and individual interests and fail to think about a collectiveness of each and every person. The first thing we want to say is that the administrators stand the higher chances to stop people building in areas that will be demolished in the future. For example, they should be honest. We have people in offices who ask for jobs but they are not ready to work. And there are a lot of people who are ready to work, but they are not in those positions to actually work. So we are saying that they should be able to dispense their functions to Cameroonians. Offices that people have acquired, they should be able to deliver according to those offices. For example, you should be honest. If people come to you for land siting and for allocation plan for building, at times the council send out its own technicians to go and survey that area before it is being given. But there is never a time you ever come to the conclusion that any area was ever disqualified, so long as you are ready to pay the bid. Okay. So the first thing is, we ourselves must first be conscious about our own existence and our own goodwill settlement. You should know where you want to build. You yourself should first of all analyze it. You should ask questions. When you go to the authorities, I want to say it is our right. It is your right that you go to the authorities in place to tell you the location. Every location in town here have a side mapping. And that side mapping, they can tell you where a swamp is, where roads are going to pass, and whatever, and it should guide. But we don't see our administration doing that. And we also see people, like he was talking, people with bad faith.
In other words, you are saying that they don't go to the field.
I may conclude that they don't go to the field because they go to the field, but they don't work anything.
No results.
So you go to the field without you working. Definitely you were not there.
Okay, let me come to Mr. Njomo Cyril. Looking at especially what is happening in the littoral region, it's a replica of what is happening in the country, whereby we know very much that when money changes hands, people just build the way they want. Now, looking at it, they have started demolition. What's your take about what is happening?
Mr. Moderator, issues on land management in this country could be spread over at least 5 ministerial departments, including the Ministry of Territorial Administration, the Ministry of Land Tenure, the Ministry of Economic Planning, the Ministry of Urbanization, the recent Ministry of Local Development and Centralization. So you see, it is a field or a domain that necessitates government synergy in management. That is in the first place. Since we are in democracy and we are talking about decentralization, it appears that one of these various ministries is more concerned, and that is no other ministry than the Ministry of Territorial Administration. But by extension, it was a ministry that was splitted recently to today have the Ministry of Local Development and Decentralization. So these two ministries are directly involved. Talking about the case of littoral, I want to borrow from the engineer on the platform, and I want to thank you by extension for inviting such a fine mind to talk about this kind of topic. He breaks down the issues in developmental aspects. He did mention of when you want to reorganize a territory, you must make available space for roads, for playgrounds, for water, for irrigation, for farming land, for urbanization, and so on, for infrastructure. I just wanted to name a few since I'm not an expert on the field. The case of Douala, we cannot mention all this without talking about the geomorphology of the ground, because Douala, the littoral, the entire littoral have a grey sandy structure, texture, which make the penetration of water sometimes very difficult. And so the saturation level, and you want to believe that Douala is at the littoral of Cameroon, meaning that
it's below the sea.
Thank you so much. It seems you have had also some geography classes. So it means that when water flow from the western highlands, from the center, all those water are draining towards the ocean, where Douala is. Douala and the littoral region are just land shore besides the ocean. So, as soon as water gets saturated, and that those water are flowing, natural flood is ready to occur. At urbanization level in Douala, Mambo shows that normally in an urban city, 34% of the urbanization rate supposed to be allocated for the drainage system. That is what makes a town like Singapore, a country like Singapore, which is built practically on rivers, to be one of the most irrigated towns in the world, the capital of tourism, to never experience what we call floods. I follow a sister media where pundits of the CPTM, the dictatorial regime that is ruling us, were telling us that, oh no, we have the same situation in Chicago, in Florida, in short, in every city that is beside the ocean, which is not very true. I cited the case of Singapore that does not have flood occurring. I'm not undermining the fact that neighboring Cote d'Ivoire recently had a similar flood with 34 people who lost their life following that flood incident. Other pundits of the CPTN were claiming that the case in Douala claimed no life. But in 2000, the same scenario happened and 7 people died. In 2010, a similar situation happened and 3 people died. In 2015 again, when Aliko Dangote was mounting his cement plant in Douala, the very day that he put the then Prime Minister, Philemon Yan, to Douala, there was a flood that happened that very day. Anglophone was the then governor of the littoral region. And we also had them made promises. But 5 years down lane, nothing has been obtained. All this to say that the level of land occupation has rather increased. With my soft heart, I was tempted at a point to say that could it be the huge migration of denizens from the northwest and the southwest running away for their dear life that migrated into Douala? The population of the littoral, and Douala specifically today, is estimated to about 5 million people. It means that man activity has encroached on the natural biosphere, forcing other components of the biosphere to lack their own original space. Meaning, people are occupying places that were supposed to be occupied by land. I want to tell you an example. The siege sites at the Bonaberi, when you see that land has been reclaimed there, you should be asking yourself, where has the water gone to? When land is being reclaimed at the level of the Bonaberi, because they wanted to create parking lots for the Dangote cement plant. And so these are some of the activities that man, I'm bringing all this argument to follow about water down those who think it is a natural disaster, to say that the flood that occurred in Douala was not a natural disaster. It was caused by man activities. Now,
Okay, maybe we'll come
I said
to
you want to stop a good gospel.
Yes.
The sermon is going on well. I said you want to stop it.
Maybe this second, I will come back to you. If I look at you, the engineer, don't you think that, just as Kufo said, these guys don't go to the field to check? Because if you look at especially the flood that we usually have, you see that the drainage path that we usually have in Litora, in Douala especially, has been blocked. People have just built anyhow. If you look at the bridge that was recently built and the new roads, you see that the contractors just maybe came, did their work, and there was no proper checkup. And so you see that there's a lot of blockage that is causing all this flood. Don't you see that there's a message we have to send to the people who are supposed to do their work?
Mr. Moderator, what I pick from you are two things. Drainage, which goes to soil, and bridges, which accompany waterways.
The kind of flood we have today,
let me come, Mr. Moderator.
Before the bridge and the roads that have been constructed.
I want to borrow, man-made hazards or man-made environmental threats.
Yeah.
Are there, and natural threats are there. The increase in population in Douala itself is a problem to the terrain of Douala, which means what makes Douala become so populated is not even due to the recent Anglophone crisis where there are movement. It is the industrial zone of Douala, which make people to go to Douala to fetch for their daily bread. By the time we start decongesting Douala, one will be solving the problem. I'm not done.
How does the population now? How does the population cause the kind of flood?
Let me finish how the population cause. With the overcrowded city of Douala, hazardous zones are forced, or in these zones, due to the hazardous nature, people are beginning to occupy those areas. One. Two.
Putting structures.
Putting structures there. Two. The soil in Douala is very porous because Douala is already on water level. Yeah. It's living on water. Yeah. So you don't expect water to drain water. Instead, when the water table rises, the water is bound to come up.
But what's the place of the government now? People go and construct in risky places.
We have all said it here that those areas, even the government know that it has been mapped out for reservation, for other stuff like that.
So they have the blame.
They have the blame because the administrators in the local council permit these things to occur even by their subordinate. And for example, the first, second, third, fourth deputy mayor may sign this authorization, and the mayor in command will pass by this side and see the building going on. He will not stop because thinking that, and the last envelope I received may be due to these projects. Okay, I'm not done. Bridgeways. I want to compare bridgeway to our roads. I tell you that a road when we travel around the cities that make up Cameroon, you see the bulldozer will come and bulldoze maybe 12, let me not go out of standards, around 8 meters length road. But by the time they are coming to Tada road, you realize that they will tar just a very narrow path. So, due to the analysis and calculations that are being made in the offices, is different from what is going to be applicable on field. For example, an engineer that lives in Douala that has witnessed one of the waterways in Douala and know the volume of water will sit in his office and do the analysis. And then that give it to a contractor. The contractor goes to the government. The government is not willing to pay the total sum. What do they agree on? Since it is 7 meters, just reduce it to 5 meters. Now that is where you begin to see blockages on waterway. You begin to see container piling up in one particular area.
Okay.
Thank you. Let me not monopolize the floor.
On this topic. Let me come to Sekufo. Sekufo, I would like us to, with what we have to add on this first part of this topic, I would like us to also go to the second part of this topic, which is the land grabbing part of it. With what is happening in the littoral and other places in Cameroon, whereby a single person will come and cause a demolition of houses, story buildings for about 17,000 or meters of land to own it alone, and displace more than 1,000 people. After so many years they have built there, what do you think is the cause of all this misbehavior?
You know, land is being treated in Africa as a deity. Africans worship land. Land to Africans is being treated like a deity. And there are some lands that are ancestral. Ancestral lands which are also inherited. And at times people feeling parting away from such property is like parting away from their own originality. It's like parting away from their own root. And sometimes people come back, they may have the money. If somebody can make a state of that nature to go down, it means the money is not the issue there. We should be talking about the feelings of nostalgia. He feels so attached to that said property. But now we want to look again, those who acquire the properties. Did they acquire it through the right way? Did they buy it? Did they bought it from the rightful owners? Did they ask questions? How did they find themselves there? Those are some questions that will be disturbing, that you need to raise up to see why such things will be happening. For example, even if you leave your land, like the law says in urban areas it's 10 years, in rural areas it should be 15 years on development and the government.
Yeah, but I want us to look at this conflicting, because, okay, let me take one of your constituencies in my 16, where we got maybe somebody, trying to own a whole field. That field has been in my 16 for donkeys of years, but one person wants to come and own it, and maybe the traditional ruler is giving it out to the person. This kind of land grabbing, do you see, is it the mistake or the cause of the government or an individual?
We don't even call that land grabbing, we call that madness to the highest height. Why? How can you transform a playing ground into a residential place? One time I was in Limbe, that similar things occurred, but they put a halt to it. That has been a field for ages. So automatically, like we all have been analyzing here, that before a city is being drafted or a country, it has already been demarcated. So town planning is not something that happens yearly. So for the chief to go in there, will still tell you about the aspect of thinking individually, thinking about your own personal interests against community interest. It should be madness for you to try to sell a playing ground. For we all know that the recreational activities is what binds the society together. We want to say Cameroon is a proactive society because it's made up with a huge population of youth. And this youth, the recreational activities is also economically generating to the nation.
Mr. Njomosiri, you conclude on this topic. What's your take about this land grabbing, whereby we see so many, more than 5,000 people have been displaced in Douala because one person wants to own a mass land? Here in Boya, in my 16, we see a situation where a football field that they have been using for so many years, one person wants to own it as his land.
I think that they are just part of the excesses of the Jacobin regime that is ruling us. Up to 2012, land title was a luxury. To have a land title was a luxury.
Yeah.
The international community, especially the UNESCO and the UN Fund for Women, have struggled a lot so that women, especially widows, can equally have land rights. And we thank God that 8 years after, there have been some land progress, and I think even the Ministry of Land Tenure later came on. What we witnessed today with the few cases you have raised in Limbe, My 16 and others, actually are just excesses of zealous administrators, notably the senior divisional officer I'm not by here attacking the senior divisional officer of FACO, Mr. Ledo Angomba, or the DO of Boya, Mr. Abba Abdurrahman, no. But to say that sometimes we have witnessed some of their excesses on land issues, because it's commonly said, I told you from the onset of this debate that the issue of land is being administered by so many ministries, and at the helm of that, we have the representative of the head of state in every administrative unit, because according to administrative law, the tutor of every jurisdiction is headed by a representative of this organ. So they have excesses. For example, Upper Bojongo have recently had an imposed chief to administer over the people. How come that somebody inherited his father from the mother's side? And people start asking themselves, but what is happening?
A grandchild.
So why does the son are them? So these are, you see that tomorrow, if that individual now start taking ownership of particular land, because since as a chief, he's the custodian of the culture of that particular place, and by extension, he's the one who gives, he has a say on the land tenure and land title of lands within that jurisdiction. So I'm bringing all these facts to show that no, it is not really that there is a problem among the people who are living. It's simply because the administrators that are there to coordinate and respect the procedure to obtain land, most of the time incline themselves with the rich over the interest of the owner or the befitted owners.
Okay, Jeff, you
but I wanted to land with an issue, please, if you really permit me, since I started denouncing issues here, if around, because we are also talking about administration and local administration, to say this letter to the chief of center of Eneo Boya, to tell him that we, the denizens of Boya, have recently noticed that electricity bills are not reaching the household. I want to believe that if they singly took upon themselves to stop giving bill because they were kidnapped when they go to neighborhoods, they need to bring their customers aware of it, and together we take a joint decision. Not that they sit in their office and decide that people are going to be paying their transport. I take myself, for example, every month I need to pay 500 francs to a NEO office, 2 and 4 is 1,000 francs to go and collect my bill. And for last month, because I traveled, I was not around, they accumulated my bill and it has amounted. I'm not talking about myself alone, I'm using my situation. And most of the time they do estimates. Now, this is in total violation of the consumer law in this country and the agreement between the electricity supplier and the beneficiaries. If they have changed the modus operandi, they have to make it very clear and who bear the cost of transportation. Then there's an extra 5,000 francs that they add every month. I've accumulated that for the 3 times for the past 12 months that it has been occurring. It's amounting to about 30,000. I'm asking myself, who is supposed to pay? This is what we call consumer extortion. And I think this case, if it's not handled well, we are going to bring it to the court of jurisdictions, because now as we talk, Enoe in Yaoundé is already facing some litigation with the public, and I wanted to seize this opportunity, since we are talking about local administration, to fire this issue so that they should know that the people are not dubious. If they have changed their modus operandi, they should sensitize the people and tell them how we share the burden.
Okay, before we conclude, let me just promise our viewers that maybe in the days ahead, we shall be coming to that seriously, because there have been consistent light cuts in Boya, especially in the areas of Bonduma and other places. And so these people are threatening to come up for a public demonstration. I think if they are watching, they should know at once and solve the problem, because that is what is going on the ground now, especially in the area in Bonduma going towards Bokwai. There's a kind of underground plan there for a public demonstration. Just 30 seconds to conclude, please.
Mr. Moderator, I want to say here that when a government is not well structured, the government spends more and realizes less. For example, I want to use the case of demolition in Yaoundé due to a project called Autoroute. This project has been in the pipeline for a very long time, and it has been traced by a joint team of geotechs who tests the bearing capacity of the soil to see if the soil can withstand the load that will be imposed on it by cars and movement vibration costs. And geotechnics accompany them in this project. Now this road has been mapped out for a very long time, and the local authorities still did not follow the modulus. They allow people to construct on this pathway right up to where it was leading to. And today, they are demolishing and compensating people. That was money that was supposed to be used to tie other roads in other regions. We should not be making the same, applying the same formula and expecting different changes at all the time. Secondly, I want to come back to tell our local population that they should do the right thing. For once on this platform, I congratulated Minister Atanganji for saying that you need to obtain a land certificate before construction. I will not paint the picture of construction, which means if you don't have a land certificate, truly you should not buy roads. But on the other hand, I will not go with him when it comes to agriculture. Thirdly, I want to say what you just cited in Bunduma, it all comes under traditional rulership because, like Mr. Jomo said, when you plant a wrong tree, it will grow wild. So, for example, the Geo of Boya planting a grandson to supersede a village who she does not know the different map layouts and maps out because the father must have taught the son, and the son was his own duty to teach the one who is now known as the grandson. That is the systematic way in which life goes. So let's come back to my 16. I think that field, that playground is near a primary school, unless you disagree with me. Because if you have a school, it is well known that all schools have their field, because there's a time in the Anglophone tradition where schools go in for units for games. So every school is bound to have its playground, and as the old saying go, learn without play makes Jacks a dull boy. So we put the right administrators, and they administer us very well. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you so very much, dear viewers. At this time, we shall be talking on the conflicting ideas between the Cameroon Renaissance movement and the SDF. And if you look at our topic, you know there's a conflict within the house in the SDF whether to connive with the Cameroon Renaissance movement to join them in the street demonstration. You know, just a few days ago, Maurice Kamto of the Cameroon Renaissance movement called on a street demonstration to come for election hold up. And so